Alright lads and lasses, welcome to another video on the channel where today I'm just gonna try and talk a little bit. Not for anything particularly, I just want to sort of give you an idea of what's coming up on the channel and get your guys' input on what you would want us to do going forward. I've got a couple of ideas down on my ideas list. I did manage to find it, albeit in a smaller format. So before it used to be like 20, 30 ideas long, if not a bit longer. Now it's about 5 or 6 ideas that I've narrowed it down to. The ideas obviously do need refinement before I upload them or even think about it. So please let us know what you'd like us to change in the ideas if you've got any suggestions, but also any ideas on top of it. And I will obviously, as I said in my last video, just remember things halfway through and stuff like that. And there's not really any structure, so I will obviously have more ideas as I'm doing this and having this conversation with you. So I've got it down on my phone, which is just on my side here. If you give us 1 second, I'm just going to log in and I'm going to give you the ideas one by one and explain what my ideas were initially, what I think I might be able to change. And there we go. So the password has been entered. I've already got the notes open, so let's go through them. Number 1 is the Ramble Inn. The Ramble Inn was, funny enough, not a play on Anne Boleyn's name, but rather the name of a pub. The idea behind this episode, or this series I should say, is to be a podcast which I would run, getting on guests and stuff like that. And my initial idea was to have just normal everyday pub chat. I wouldn't want to do something that's discussing serious issues without a comedic element, or in terms of I don't really want to be touching on too serious of subjects, just because I feel like it isn't right for me to comment on those sorts of things. And the idea behind that podcast was to basically negate any sort of, pressure at all, and I just wanted to be able to talk about whatever I want to talk about, whether it be mental health, or whether it be, what's the football score, stuff like that. And I don't want there to be too much of a structure because I struggle to keep to it. Like, one of my biggest struggles when I was at college, as you'll know if you watch my last video, was to do with scripting. I didn't like writing scripts because I didn't feel like I'd stick to them, especially if it was word for word. So, for example, with any sort of content I hope to bring, which is extremely detail heavy, I feel like I would fail at doing it, so I would have to stick to key points and key times, for example, to move on. And that's one thing I'm obviously going to develop as I go forward in this creation industry, but I feel like doing this podcast would help quite a lot with that. But also, there was a couple of ideas within the episode. So, for example, depending on who I had on, whether it just be me solo, which would probably be the pilot episode, or whether it be someone like my cousin or my mates, or even to an extent trying to get into the professional area. I would love to have it where every guest drinks, obviously cultural dependent. Like if they were a Muslim, for example, I wouldn't have them drink. That's blatantly obvious. And I probably wouldn't drink either in that episode to mark my respect. But it would be a what's drinking section, so you would ask each guest what you're drinking, and also me what I'm drinking. And the idea would be to be different every time that I come on air. So that would be the basic premise of the episode. I'll log back into my phone again because it's logged us out, and we'll go through the second idea. So if you've watched my last video, you may have come across one of the ideas I already mentioned. This is this idea, so please bear with us as I explain again. But this idea was called Bits. It was basically short form content which could be turned into long form content at a later date. So basically the idea behind the series was, if I create a short video no longer than like 5 minutes, and I would just basically pick a topic, talk about it, research it, give you a little bit of an insight into it, and then if it gained enough interest, I would go and make it into a long form thing. There are a few changes I would make to that series, and number one being, I think, to keep with the zero structure element, I would love to do it where I'd base it off my own knowledge or my retainment of knowledge, for example. So whether it be explaining nuclear theory, like the example I used in the last one, or whether it be explaining something like personal data, I would rather it not be, I have the document in front of us. I would rather have to rely on memory recall in order to make sure that you get the best sort of idea of how I've understood it rather than me reading off a sheet. Not only that, and obviously that'll improve my memory, but also I would love to have it where I would have like a random wheel. I don't know if you've seen like the apps, randomize a wheel or spin the wheel or whatever. You'd put options on and you'd say, right, okay, I know I've got research or I've researched, say, 6 things. You might add a couple of personal ones in there. So, for example, one might be mental health, but then you'd do like, I don't know, 100 or some different topics, for example. You'd have research on most of them and you'd have to try and recall it on your own thing by spinning the wheel, seeing what it picks, setting a timer, and if you overstep the timer, either you have to do a forfeit or you basically just fail that challenge or that episode. And I would try and do it where, because I know I've got room here, possibly I could put a leaderboard up of the quickest times. So once I've finished off everything I can think of seeing and everything that I think is relevant to that episode, you would then stop the timer, however many seconds is left, that's the time, and you would then say, oh, my quickest time is 4 minutes 30, for example, instead of 5 minutes. So I'm going to try and beat that every episode. So that's sort of the idea behind it. Then we had a progression into something called chunks. Now I will change this. This isn't an idea I'm going to carry. It's basically the long form version of bits. I will change the name of bits as well, I think, to something like tasters. Not only because I like my food, because I'm a fat fuck, but also because I feel like that's a much better name. It's better than just saying, oh, bits. You know what I mean? So that'll be one thing. Chunks will be disbanded, but it will basically become like a documentary long form type thing where I just do that as individual videos rather than part of a series. 404 or Error 404, my computer based series. Excuse me. My computer based series, again, this is something that I think the format works really well. So, for example, my pilot episode was Trojan Horse, which I've just recently re-uploaded. Go and check that out. And I feel like I would need to continue that series because I love computing. I love everything to do with computer, and I think that it would help you guys be really savvy with being safe online. But not only that, but being able to branch out into programming languages, building PCs if need be, what each component does, just stupid stuff like that, because I feel like you just need to be more savvy online. I need to learn again how to operate online, how to sort of use every component, how to spot different viruses, stuff like that. So it would be beneficial for me, but it would be more beneficial for you to know it as well. And I think that's one of the key things about the series and how good it is. It's also a key interest of mine, so it works really well. Weird World of Video Games is another idea. This one was based on an idea I had at college. For those who've played the Pokemon games, you might have heard of a location called Lavender Town. For those who haven't, basically the story goes that in the original, I think it was Pokemon Blue or Red, the Lavender Town soundtrack caused an influx in suicides after the game was released, or so that was the rumour. They then changed the composition and the suicide rate went down in Japan amongst kids, and I think it would be really interesting to look into sort of the odd sort of side of that. Like Lavender Town would be one of them, but you could also look into Easter eggs, glitches within games, or even something as sinister as that link. That's basically all the ideas I've got down on the list, but a couple more I've thought of. I've got poetry that I used to write, and I'm trying to get back into it, but I've just got no inspiration at the moment. But I could read out some of my old poetry if you'd prefer that. Truth be told, I did delete a few of them because they were based on things. But a lot of the mental health ones and stuff like that, I'm more than willing to do. I've got about 10 of them. So that could be a potential offshoot or mini series to run. And it wouldn't be like a long term thing. It would just be to get this place off the ground, I think. I don't know what I would call it, so suggest any names down below. But I basically just read poetry in the way that I would have loved for it to have been read out you know, had it been a public thing. I've got a lot of mental health poems in there, so like there would be a bit of discretion there. There's a couple of ones that are really positive, but a lot of them do reference like really terrible things like suicide. So I would obviously make sure that that's perfectly clear at the start of every episode, and it might be the first series I start trying to implement because it would be the easiest to do. So that's something to look out for. As for other series, I'm really interested in like the likes of football and darts, so there may be series coming around that. So, for example, there's a really good series from Dynamite Darts, who does Path to Pro. Now, he's much closer than I am to ever being a pro, and I will never ever be a pro. I don't think I'm not good enough now. I've not really improved, so there'd be no point in me doing that. But you might see a lot of training exercises going up, or um, just stuff to do with the game and like the pub development. Same with pools, same with just clubs in general, because that's sort of my environment where I feel safe and comfortable, and I feel like I could bring you some fantastic content should I be allowed to film in venues like that and record possible events. Football wise, I'll probably end up doing like Premier League predictions at the start of every year, but also Championship, League One, League Two, National League, basically all of the English divisions up to like tier 6 or tier 7. As well as that, I'll probably do Germany and stuff like that because those are leagues that I'm really interested in. And not just my club, Newcastle. I've got clubs who I feel an affinity to in near enough every league, and that's not me being a glory hunting cunt. Like, for example, right now, because I've got no personal affinity. So, for example, the reason why I'm a Newcastle fan is down to my family and my dad. But with the likes of Germany, I don't have that connection. There was a couple of clubs I loved in Germany purely because of either their storyline and stuff like that. So again, storylines could be something to look into. So for example, Borussia Dortmund was my first football shirt. That wasn't like Newcastle or a Sunderland, I think, because I did have one when I was really young of a Sunderland shirt, which they got for me, Nana and Grandad got for us. I've now got a Mönchengladbach top. I love Union Berlin for their storyline and stuff like that. So that would be something to look into because there are leagues I'm really interested in. Hansa Rostock's another one. I did a career mode with them back in FIFA 19. Excuse me. So again, I've got an affinity towards that. Wimbledon at the moment, I'm doing a career mode on FIFA, so that might be something to look into. Into like looking at Wimbledon's story. Wimbledon's story is really interesting for those who actually don't know the history. I'm not going to go into it because again, it could be a video. But in terms of series, I'm going to do Prem predictions and stuff like that. I'm going to do Championship, just stuff like that because it's something I'm really interested in. And also reviews of their results, obviously. I mean, the Irish Guy is probably the best example of a series that is functional, that works in a very similar style to what I aim to produce. He's excellent at it, so please go and check him out if that's something that you're interested in. If you're looking at more analytical sides of football and stuff like that, which I also aim to sort of dip my feet into, James Alcott's really good. Tactical Analysis Hub's also a really good one, but he hasn't uploaded in I think a couple of years. He's back now, so hopefully he can bring you some brilliant content as well. But that pretty much rounds up everything I need to say. I really hope that there's some interesting content going forward. Leave any suggestions for anything you would like to see. If there's anything that you think, I want his viewpoint on it, because I do speak, as much as I do stutter and stuff like that, I do speak quite well of mature topics. So please feel free to contribute anything that you feel my insight would be valuable for, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, catch you later.